What if I told you that burnout isn't just about your job or about you? It's about what happens when the two collide. This is the Lawyer Burnout Solution, a podcast for female attorneys who want to stay in the careers they've worked so hard to build without running themselves into the ground. I'm Heather Mills, and every week I'll share the tools, strategies, and mindset shifts you need to reclaim your energy, confidence, and career. If you're feeling burned out, you might be wondering, is it the legal system that's grinding me down, or is it something about me? Maybe you're blaming yourself for not being tough enough, or maybe you're convinced it's just the impossible demands of the job. Or maybe you're starting to think your calendar has a personal vendetta against you. Here's what most people miss. Burnout is never just about you, and it's never just about the system. The legal profession is basically a pressure cooker. Deadlines, billable hours, and client emergencies turn up the heat from the outside, while perfectionism and self-doubt build steam on the inside. Without a way to release that pressure, something's bound to blow. To make sense of it all, I like to sort burnout causes into two buckets, external and internal. Because if there's one thing lawyers love, it's putting things into categories. External stressors are everything happening around you. Workload, billable targets, demanding clients, tight deadlines, or a boss who thinks urgent means right now at midnight. These are the relentless pressures baked into the legal profession. And yes, sometimes it does feel like your inbox is multiplying faster than my neighbor's very adorable pet rabbits. Internal stressors are what's happening inside your own head. Perfectionism, self-criticism, that feeling of never being enough, or worrying about what other people think. These are the mental habits and beliefs that keep you up at night, replaying conversations or stressing over every detail, even when you're objectively doing a great job. If you've ever been awake at 2 a.m. reliving a typo from last week or 2 months ago, you know exactly what I mean. When these two sets of pressures collide, they don't just add up, they multiply. The external demands of law amplify your internal doubts, and your internal doubts make every external challenge feel heavier. That's why burnout isn't about being too sensitive or just having a toxic workplace. It's about the interaction between your environment and the way your brain has been trained to respond. The good news, once you see how both sides are at play, you can start to address them directly. In this episode, we'll dig deep into the internal patterns that keep you stuck in burnout. And next time, we'll tackle the external pressures head on. Let's talk about what I call the lawyer's mindset. If you've ever obsessed over a missing comma or replayed a conversation from weeks ago, like we talked about before, you're in good company. I think I've replayed conversations from 18 years ago. Law school and the profession train us to be hypervigilant, detail-obsessed, and always on the lookout for mistakes, habits that might make you a sharp lawyer, but also set you up for burnout. First, perfectionism. In law, it's practically a job requirement. You're taught that mistakes are catastrophic, so your brain becomes a nonstop error detection machine. The trouble is, perfectionism isn't about pride in your work. It's believing that you should be perfect. You end up chasing standards no human could meet, and then beating yourself up when you don't meet them. Then there's the all or nothing thinking, the belief that you're either killing it or failing, with nothing in between. This black and white mindset keeps you hustling for those gold stars and terrified of falling short. It's exhausting, and the goalposts just keep moving. I mean, apparently good enough is a setting on my dishwasher, but not in my brain. And let's not forget negativity bias. Lawyers are rewarded for spotting problems and imagining worst-case scenarios, but that skill doesn't turn off after hours. You find yourself focusing on that one bit of negative feedback instead of the 10 positives, or replaying awkward moments long after everyone else has moved on. It's no wonder our brain is always on high alert, right? Now layer on self-criticism and guilt. Legal training and the way women are socialized teaches us to be our own harshest critics. That inner critic doesn't just point out mistakes, it catastrophizes them. One typo and suddenly your brain is spiraling. What if I lose the client's trust? What if I'm not cut out for this? Excessive responsibility shows up too. You start to believe that if you just do more, work longer, say yes to everything, you'll finally feel like you're enough. But that finish line keeps moving and the weight just gets heavier. And then there's fear-based motivation. Instead of being driven by your goals, your values, or your curiosity about how capable you are or how capable you could be, you're running on anxiety, fear of failing, being judged, of letting people down. It gets you moving, but it's a terrible long-term strategy. You end up depleted, resentful, and stuck in the burnout cycle. All of these patterns, perfectionism, all or nothing thinking, negativity bias, self-criticism, excessive responsibility, and fear-based motivation, they're not personal flaws. They're habits shaped by the legal profession and by the way women are taught to show up in the world. Recognizing them is the first step. Once you see these patterns for what they are, you can start to shift them. And that's where real burnout recovery begins. Let's make this real with a few examples, because burnout doesn't discriminate by practice area or firm size or life stage. Meet Lauren, a nonprofit lawyer with 2 young kids. Lauren spends her days juggling urgent advocacy work and her evenings feeling guilty for missing bedtime stories. She's passionate about her clients, but the guilt of not being enough for her family or her job is relentless. Every time she says no at work, she feels like she's letting down the cause. Every time she says no at home, she feels like a bad mom. Her perfectionism and sense of responsibility keep her running on empty. Then there's Dana, a corporate litigator at a big firm with no kids. On the surface, people assume she should have it easier. No school pickups, no soccer games. But Dana is convinced that unless she wins every case and bills every possible hour, she'll fall behind. She's the one volunteering for every bet the company case, answering emails at midnight, and terrified of letting down the partners. Her all or nothing thinking means anything less than a win feels like a loss. And the pressure never lets up, and she's starting to wonder if she's cut out for the work. Or consider Sarah, who owns a small firm and has 2 teenagers at home. She feels responsible for her clients' outcomes, her employees' performance, her kids' happiness, and even her partner's stress level. She sacrifices sleep and personal time to keep all the plates spinning, driven by guilt and the fear of letting anyone down. She tells herself, if I just push through this week, I'll catch up, but that week never comes. Her perfectionism and sense of responsibility have created a pressure cooker of burnout. And finally, Priya, a young associate with no kids, but caring for aging parents on top of her billable hour requirements. Priya is always the first to volunteer, hoping to prove herself. She wakes up at 3 a.m., worrying about the deadlines, replaying conversations with her supervising partner, and convinced she's said something wrong. Every small mistake feels catastrophic. The harder she works, the more exhausted she becomes, and the more her inner critic tells her she's not enough. See the pattern? Whether you're Lauren, Dana, Sarah, or Priya, burnout isn't just about what's on your plate. It's about what's happening in your head, too. And those internal patterns, they're not just background noise. They're actually driving the burnout cycle. Here's how. When you're constantly judging yourself and chasing impossible standards, your brain treats even small work challenges as major threats. That means your body's stress response, fight or flight, is switched on way too often. You might not be running from a bear, but your nervous system can't tell the difference between a real emergency and the fear of disappointing a partner or making a mistake in a brief. Over time, this leaves you feeling exhausted, anxious, and always on edge. This cycle is tough to break because the more stressed you feel, the louder your inner critic gets. And when that happens, it's easy to slip into the trap of thinking, if I just work harder, I'll finally feel better. But working harder only feeds the stress cycle, making it even harder to recover. What finally helps is not working harder, but noticing your own patterns. When you start to recognize when your inner critic is running the show and practice responding with compassion for yourself instead of judgment, things start to shift. As you learn to pause and question these old thought patterns, your stress levels drop and you finally start to recover. So here's what I want you to remember. Burnout isn't just about your workload or your environment. It's also about how you relate to yourself. If any of this sounds familiar, plenty of us have been there too. So many women lawyers are working through these same patterns. You're part of a much bigger story, and you're definitely not failing. In fact, seeing these patterns is the first step towards changing them. You have a well-trained brain, and you absolutely have the ability to retrain it for something better. Let's talk about what you can actually do to start shifting these internal patterns. The first step is simple. Pay attention to your thoughts and beliefs as they show up in real time and write them down. What's that saying? It never happened if you don't write it down. When you notice yourself thinking things like, I should have done more, or if I don't take this on, I'm letting everyone down. Pause. Instead of taking those thoughts at face value, get curious. Ask yourself, where did this come from? Is this belief actually true, or is it just something from my childhood, my law school training, or somewhere else? So much of what drives burnout is automatic, happening at a subconscious level. Years of legal training and social expectations have wired your brain to equate worth with productivity, or to see every mistake as a disaster. But these are just habits of mind, not facts about who you are. This week, simply notice when these patterns show up. Write them down. There's my perfectionist thinking, or that's my people pleaser talking. If you catch yourself mentally awarding yourself the worst lawyer ever trophy for forgetting to reply to that one email, congratulations. You're officially human. Welcome to the club. We have snacks and a lot of overthinkers. The goal isn't to judge yourself or fix everything overnight. It's to create a little space between you and those old thoughts so you can see them for what they are. Just thoughts, not the truth. Once you start spotting these patterns, you can begin to question them, and over time, choose different responses. Give yourself credit for every moment of awareness. Let's wrap up what we covered today. Burnout is a mix of external pressures and internal patterns. Today, we focused on the internal side. Next time, we'll tackle the external. If you try just one thing this week, let it be this. Notice one moment when your brain goes into overdrive. Write it down. Remind yourself, this is just a thought. And don't miss next week when we'll talk about the external side of the burnout equation. If you recognized yourself in today's episode, if those patterns and pressures sound a little too familiar, don't just white knuckle your way through another week. Hit follow or subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every week, I'm here with practical strategies to help you break out of the burnout cycle and reclaim your energy. Or book a free 20-minute call with me to help you figure out your next steps towards burnout recovery. The link is in the show notes. If you know another lawyer who's in the pressure cooker, getting way overcooked, send this episode their way. We're not meant to do this alone. And the more we talk about it, the more we chip away at the culture that keeps us silent. One honest conversation at a time. That's how things start to change. Let's move beyond survival mode and actually build a legal career that feels good to live in. That's it for this week. Thanks for hanging out with me. Remember, when your brain starts beating you up for not being enough, that's just your socialization talking. It's not the truth. Be kind to yourself, and I'll see you next week.